Sacramento. I want to start by citing, if you will, parts of my own speech from last week's State of the City address down in Meadowview. I start by saying and meaning the only thing I know that matters to Stephon's family and many in our community. I am deeply sorry for what happened to Stephon. I am deeply sorry for all of the pain that will always be with you. The outcome was wrong. He should not have died. I struggle, we all struggle, with the right words and how to speak to the entire community. We listen to Stephon's family and the community say this has happened too many times, and they are right. To respond in a fair and complete way to today's announcement by the district attorney, we must be clear that the Stephon Clark case is not the first time our community and communities throughout the country have faced the situation of an officer-involved shooting where the person who died did not, in fact, have a gun. What I say to you now is less about the DA's conclusions and more about how to best prevent these tragedies from happening over and over and over again. Today, the district attorney said she focused on a single question. Did the officers who shot Stephon Clark commit a crime? Her answer was no. Our community and its leadership have different questions. Was the outcome wrong? Was the outcome unacceptable? The answer to both questions is yes. Today's announcement is not a surprise. What matters most now is what we do going forward together. Today's announcement only deepens our collective commitment to protecting the sanctity of life. Today's announcement only deepens our commitment to transformational community policing and better training. We must see the work we have been doing, for example, the relatively immediate release of video evidence, the requirement for body-worn cameras, the change in our foot pursuit policy to make that a last resort, not the first resort. Those examples and more as only the beginning, not the end. I said in my speech a week and a half ago, and I repeat today, I think police officers have a very tough job. They put their lives on the line, and at the same time, they have an awesome power to take a life. The current 100-year-old standard defining officer-involved shootings needs to change. Today's announcement only deepens my commitment to changing that long-held standard that allows officers to shoot when objectively reasonable, to a clearer set of specific rules and standards that requires officers to do all they can to prevent a potentially lethal confrontation in the first place. I will use my influence, my time, and my experience as a former legislative leader to help the parties change the standard to better protect both the community and our officers. I do not know whether a prevention standard would have changed this particular outcome, but I want to change future outcomes. We all want to change future outcomes. Today's announcement only deepens our commitment to making sustained and meaningful investments in all of our neighborhoods and our young people. You heard last week the $200 million commitment for neighborhoods like Meadowview and other neighborhoods that have been left behind for far too long. We mean to follow through with that commitment. We must come together now to ensure that this is a tipping point for our community, not a breaking point. Stephon Clark should not have died. And I again am sorry, we are all deeply sorry for the deep pain his family has suffered. If Sacramento is going to be a true beacon of equality, then every community must feel equally safe. Stephon's death must be the catalyst for the kind of change that people will look back upon and say, out of the depths of pain and anger and injustice came hope, peace, and real equity for our people. As you know, it's been well reported over the last 6 to 8 weeks, we have had weekly Friday meetings at City Hall. And they've been led by Councilmember Rick Jennings. 30 to 50 community leaders a week to talk not just about this moment, but the months and the years ahead. And so I want to turn the mic over to Councilmember Jennings, who's going to introduce our pastors to talk about some of what is going on over the next hours, to both keep the peace and to seek justice. Rick?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank each and every one of you for being here. And also I want to thank my colleagues for being here as well. They have been at these meetings for the last 6 to 8 weeks, side by side with me as we have these meetings. But more importantly than my colleagues being here is to have the community here with us every single week to talk about what we can do as a city to make Sacramento great, to continue to build on the greatness of Sacramento. And so these have been community-led meetings, and you're going to hear some of the results of that as we talk forward to what it is that we can do in Sacramento to make Sacramento better, what it is that we can do to meet the needs of those kids that are out there that don't quite understand what happened today or understand the decision that was made today. What can we do for the families that are out there that need help? And so we're going to talk about opportunities for justice and healing spaces that kids can go to get a better understanding. Parents can go to get an education on how to talk to their families and how to talk to their kids, address the anger and the frustration and the emotion that is going on with each and every single one of them right now, and be able to accept that and have the experts there to be able to address that. I want to stop for a second and show support for the Clark family. I would never want to lose my son before my death. I would never want to lose a sibling before my death. I would never want to see that happen. And I want to stop just to support the Clark family and let them know that our prayers and support are with them, and that we are here a phone call away if they need any help whatsoever, because what they're going through is what none of us would ever want to go through. So back to the community leaders, the people who have been meeting, and as the mayor said, 30 to 60 of them have been meeting on a weekly basis for the last 6+ weeks. And we've had the opportunity to come up with community solutions, but also we've had the opportunity to go through healing ourselves as a community. And to speak to that, I'd like to bring up Pastor Tamara Bennett and Pastor Ray Green.
I will first give honor and appreciation to our mayor and to all of our city officials, but special honor and reverence to the entire Clark family. For the past 6 to 8 weeks, we have been meeting, and it's been a room full of community leaders, faith-based leaders, profound and powerful citizens, and we've gathered together in an effort to have healing stations or gathering places or safe zones, but it's an area where we can come together, where we can share our hurt, even our disappointment, to share our frustrations, but to also speak about policy and reform. How can we avoid this from ever happening again? The following locations are open today: Greater Sacramento Urban League, they're open from noon till 8. The Oak Park Community Center is open today between 1 and 7. The Roberts Family Center is open today between 1 and 6. And the Max Baer Park is open today between 2 and 7. And then my own church home, this is Pentecost Fellowship Ministries, is open today until 6 p.m. In addition to that, we have what are called pop-ups or other safe zones for our young people and for families to come together. And it's so that we can surround our young people with strategies and educate them about policy, and then to help them understand what this process is and how they can absolutely be the generation of change, that they can be the generation that this will not happen again. And so again, I personally want to thank the mayor, and I mean it. I really appreciate you for even making the efforts to bring us together to try to come up with a solution. I appreciate the chief of police for being very candid and honest through this process. I appreciate you, Mr. Jennings, but I also appreciate all of the brothers and sisters of the community that came to these meetings every single week to be able to come up with something so that our city will be healed and our city will be safe. None of these efforts are going to fix the problem of losing Stephon. We are hurt. And a mother has lost her son. And the entire Clark family structure has changed forever. And so today's event has reopened that wound for this family. And I just say to my entire brothers and sisters throughout our city, they need no salt on the wound, but they need the balm of Gilead. They need prayer, they need love, and they need to feel that their city is standing with them, that we will not see this again. And so from the community coming together, we have formed what's called #NotOneMore. Not one more. It's #NotOneMoreSac, and I'm going to give it to who I consider my honorable son in the gospel, Ray Green, to elaborate more.
So today, we've heard some devastating news from the community's perspective. And a lot of us are angry, a lot of us are hurt, a lot of us in this moment may not know exactly what we can do to move forward, but as community has always done, we will take care of community.
Yes.
With prayers, supplication, spaces. These spaces specifically, again, are to provide an opportunity to have a conversation, to heal, to get to hear from one another how we can change policy, how we can change some of the police reforms that we would desire. So the #NotOneMoreSac is not about just this moment, because there were many, many people that have lost their lives. Many people. #NotOneMoreSac means that we're tired of it. It means that we are coming together so that not one more family has to endure this pain. Not one more community has to experience this trauma. Not one more brother has to experience the loss of their own brother. Not one more sister, uncle, auntie, niece, nephew, wife, or husband has to experience this. Not one more is not about just this moment, but it is a movement.
Yes.
A movement. So if you want to find out more information, again, you can #NotOneMoreSac. There will be listed the several locations which was mentioned before. And we're just asking each and every person who's able and who's willing to help us make change and to help us heal at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, pastors, both of you. I would be glad to, any of my other colleagues, if anything is fine, I'm happy to answer your questions best that I can. Questions?
Mayor, do you think that the police officers in this case should be fired?
The department, here is the process. The department has not completed its internal review. It must complete its internal review before the chief makes any kind of a recommendation to the city manager. And as you know, the city council does not have the authority, nor the mayor, to make that decision. I would prejudice, frankly, the potential and possibility of discipline if I were to comment at this point on that, and that's the truth.
So what, I mean, we were talking about what we can do going forward before today. We're talking about what we can do going forward tomorrow. What's concrete? What's concrete in the community not just the police department. That's something that people in the community can really grab
It's
onto.
concrete. We're in the second weekend of our pop-ups. Let's distinguish the vernacular here. These are the youth activities on Friday nights. We have very few youth activities on Friday nights. Now we are committed to multiple sites throughout the entire city every Friday night, and not just till the end of June, but so long as we're here, forever, because that's what our kids deserve. You heard the pastors talk about some of the places where people can gather today. Look, I laid out a very ambitious proposal last week. A $200 million proposal over the course of the next 5 years to invest in ways we have never invested in our communities before. That ultimately is a key piece of the answer. And my colleagues and I will have the opportunity to deliberate and debate and to make those decisions in the coming months. You know, we wake up every day. I know I do, and I know it's true of my colleagues. I wake up every single day with a passion and with a feeling of urgency about what we must do to improve the quality of lives for people who feel left out and feel disenfranchised. And you know, it takes longer than I want it to in many instances. But we have an agenda in this city. It's a very clear agenda. It's to build this economy, but tie it directly into investing in young people and in our communities. And on the policing front, we have more work to do. It's obvious. I'm proud of the things that the chief has done, as I said last week. But we've got dozens of additional recommendations that the Attorney General has spoken to. We have a lot of more work to do. And then there's this work at the state level. And I think it's very, very important. Again, everything ought to be about prevention. What do we do to protect the community and the officers? What do we do to prevent these kinds of confrontations? That's a long overdue debate over at the State House, and I know I'm no longer there, but I know how to walk over there.
Can you be a little more specific on what you like to see in terms of reforming state laws?
I would like to see the current constitutional standard that dates back to, I believe, the 1800s, says that if an officer-involved shooting is deemed reasonable after the fact, that it is then justifiable. I believe that that standard needs to be changed. I think the question must be, was the shooting preventable? And certainly not to second-guess split-second decisions, but to make relevant what leads up to a situation, what leads up to that moment of confrontation where that split-second decision ends in what we are facing here as a community. I love the hashtag, not one more. Not one more. We want everyone to be safe, the public and the officers.
So to be a little more specific on the question about the legislation, there are two different bills that would update the standard, and currently that 100-year-old standard is not actually what the district attorney applied. She applied the constitutional standard that's, I don't know, 30 years old or something. So are you supporting the Shirley Weber bill update version or the Ana Caballero?
I support the principles of the Weber bill. All right, I didn't say it. Now, but I spent enough years over there, as you know, to know that this is going to take a real good faith negotiation and discussion. Whether the vehicle is the Weber bill or the Caballero bill, it is going to take the most intense of good faith debate and discussion to get to a place that changes the standard, that better protects the public and officers, and uses the overarching standard of was it preventable. The language, of course, matters, because I do believe that the police absolutely have a right to have a clear standard, too. They want to prosecute police officers willy-nilly. Right? The standard needs to be very clear. But where it could be prevented, really prevented, and yet you end up in that split-second decision that leads to this?
So what's the difference between supporting the concept in the bill and supporting the bill?
I think the Weber vehicle is very, very important. So yes, I support the Weber bill. I support the Weber vehicle. Okay, I said it. I think it's probably going to be amended over time, and I want to participate in that process and in that negotiation, so that you can get to a place where the police officers and the sponsors of the bill and the legislators and everybody can get behind a comprehensive proposal that keeps the public and the officers safer than they are today.
Do you think a compromise is possible?
Of course it's possible. We're talking about rewriting a standard, whether it's 30 years old or 100 years old. We're talking about rewriting a standard. I probably did it 75 times when I was over there on different controversies. And of course it's possible. And it's necessary. I mean, you know, I know the way it works over there. Everyone's in their camps, and you got the two bills, and that's the way it starts out. And then I know the session moves along, and I hope that this tragedy propels change. Not only change here in the city, but change at the state level as well. I would say the words of that bill are exactly what should be in the final product. That's not the way that this works. But I think the idea of could it have been prevented, as opposed to was it reasonable after the fact, is the right direction to go. If the Caballero bill, by the way, begins moving in that direction, that too could be the vehicle. It doesn't matter who the author is in the end. Okay?
Tamara Bennett, T-A-M-A-R-A, Bennett, B-I-Baker, E-N-N-E-T-T. Oh, this
Sure.
is Pentecost Ministries, or also known as TIP, T-I-P. TIP
What was the first word?
Tamara Bennett.
No, about before Pentecostal.
This.
Oh,
the
sorry,
actual
sorry.
word, yeah, this is Pentecost, so also known as TIP Ministries.
Other questions?
Has there been any outreach?
Big green.
Sorry.
My name is Ray, R-A-Y, last name Green, G-R-E-E-N, along with Tiff.
Mayor.
Has there been any outreach to federal, to any kind of like federal attorney general or any kind of other review of this case and or previous
We
cases?
know that the state attorney general has conducted an independent investigation and will release his findings sometime in the near future. Wasn't the same day, we thought maybe it would be, but it's not. And so we will await his decision as well. Thank you.
Looking ahead to this week, it's going to be a busy week
Yeah.
of demonstrations.
Yeah.
How concerned are you about the energy in the city in the days to follow?
Well, I cannot predict what will happen, but I must tell you, I'm extremely proud of this community. I'm proud of the leadership, and I'm talking about the elected leadership. I'm proud of them too. I'm proud of the community leadership. I wish everyone could hear some of the conversations that have gone on over the last couple of months about how to reconcile peace and justice, about how to heal, about how to move an agenda in the city that will speak to what underlies what brings us here today. I have faith in the community leadership that they're going to do everything that they can to help keep the peace while we pursue justice. That's not a prediction, but I have faith in Sacramento.
And Mayor, the community is already reacting as expected. Some of the things they're saying is, what's the point of transparency if there's no accountability? What's your response to that?
My response is that the district attorney made a decision. We have the ability to choose our own course here. And it must be a course that bends towards justice and seeks to improve the lives of people who have been left behind and left out for far too long. And to continue to build a transformational community policing model in this city that is in fact the model for the nation. Not one more time. Thank you.
The DA
Thank you, everybody. What?
I was going to ask one more, which was just about the new details of the case that came out. According to the DA, there was a flash that can be seen that was caught on video, and apparently Stephon Clark yelled at officers. Does that, as he was walking towards him, does that change things a little bit?
You know, we listened very intently, and what we know is that under the current, certainly under the current laws, the current standards, that undoubtedly a jury of peers would probably not convict in this instance. And so we go forward, we look forward. What can we do to change what must be changed? What can we control? What power do we have? That's what we take stock of here as a city, and that's how we choose to move forward. Thanks.